a support for that. It shows that our important position at the moment.
Especially, because of the independence referendum coming up, we can,
yes.
if we say yes, we can say, okay, we want to be a no-nukes country. So that brings us neatly to Scottish CND has voted to join the Yes campaign. Was it fairly unanimous, or were there some dissenting voices in the group about doing that?
There was a robust discussion, as there should be. Everyone's opinions should be heard. And there was a democratic vote, and it was passed that we should join the Yes campaign. There's no doubt amongst the campaigners that the independence debate gives us huge opportunities. Suddenly, everyone's talking about Trident, and nuclear weapons have reached the place in discussion, in public discussion, where they should be all the time. I mean, people should be staying up at night worrying about this, not just people like us. Everybody should. This is a huge important thing. Never mind that X factor. This is what everyone should be tweeting about and talking about, and it should be out there. And through the independence discussion, suddenly it is up there where it should be. So we're well aware that there are these huge everybody in the movement is well aware that this gives a huge opportunity. The place where there are discussions is because lots of people have other reasons why they might vote no, but that doesn't make them not support nuclear disarmament. So it's really a question of how you take the campaign forward. It's a question of detail, really, because everybody's still against nuclear weapons. It's just whether they want to align themselves to the Yes campaign. The reason why it's seen as a good way is because there isn't anywhere else that nuclear weapons can be moved to in Britain. When I was talking earlier about the sites where Trident could be placed, all the sites that were identified back in the 60s in England they were suitable then, and they're, if that's possible, even less suitable now because of population changes and because the various things have been built. And one's got an oil refinery next to it, for example. There aren't any options. So it means that if nuclear weapons can no longer be kept at Faslane, then the British government has to look round and think, well, do we actually need these? If we can't have them, if we haven't got Scotland to put them, and there's nowhere else to put them, what are we going to do? That's why the independence campaign is so important. And no matter how it turns out, no matter what the vote is at the end of the day, these are 2 years when Trident is going to be up there and being discussed, and people are going to really have to stop and think about why they're there, what we want them for, and what we want to do about it. And the world is going to be different at the end of those 2 years. The background for our campaign is going to be different.
Also with the crisis, because people are wondering if it's, all these cutbacks and people being thrown off disability benefit, but they're still wanting to spend billions and billions on new missiles, new warheads.
Yes, and obviously there's a case for spending the money on things that keep people alive and improve their lives. So keeping people alive, like hospitals, rather than things that kill them, like weapons.
Just to come back for a moment, I read a thing about the Welsh First Minister. She said they might consider taking Trident there, and it was in the Scottish Times. They talked about it would bring economic benefits to Wales. She said Wales could be the real winner. I thought, no, that would maybe be the loser. I don't know. But
yes, you're not the only one thinking that. Last week I was in London and I was talking to Welsh CND in London. Yeah, well, we were all in London, and there's actually a move afoot to get an anti-nuclear declaration from Wales. Nobody else seems to think it's a good idea to have nuclear weapons in Wales. So I don't think that one's really going to go anywhere.
At the risk of being a bit controversial, do you think it shows something about the British state that the first place they think of to put nuclear weapons is, okay, up north in Scotland, and then if that's not an option, okay, right, we'll stick it in Wales. Does that say something about a certain London elite, or is that just me?
Well, we're told they're very safe, so perhaps they could go in the Thames.
Yeah, when hell freezes over. Okay. So now that you've joined the campaign, in what ways will CND be campaigning for a yes vote? Okay,
well, for a start, we carry on with everything we do all the time. So in the coming year, the coming year and a half, although we've got the yes campaign, we're still doing all the things we always do: peace one day, Hiroshima, and talking to politicians, talking to journalists, keeping the thing up there where it should be discussed. we're also we've got the parliamentarians for nuclear disarmament coming to Scotland. We've got an organisation called Abolition 2000 coming to Scotland. These are campaigners, international campaigners from all over the world. They're going to meet in Scotland next year. And we're planning a peace walk from Holyrood to Faslane in 2013. But the next big thing that's going to be happening will be a spring demo at Faslane. The date is to be decided. And the whole time we're going to be attending events that are leading up to the referendum. We're going to be up there getting involved in the discussion. The more people that are involved in the Yes campaign, the more inclusive it becomes. And although there's lots of people within the Yes campaign who don't agree on the detail, everyone agrees on getting rid of Trident.
Yeah, I think so. Although I think a lot of people recently were quite disappointed by the recent SNP vote to join NATO. I don't know how you felt about that.
Yes, we were disappointed as well. We were involved in discussions before it, and some of our members were there on the day when the vote was being taken. And the very next day, the SNP announced, or around the same time, the SNP announced that there would be laws against nuclear weapons in the Scottish Constitution in the future, and that's actually very, very important. There's a lot of discussions about whether an independent Scotland would get into EU, but nobody's ever actually asked whether NATO would want an independent Scotland. There's a lot more to this than what happens at the SNP conference.
Yeah, for example, what would the process be? If Scotland becomes independent, what would the process for joining NATO be at that point?
Well, that's an interesting question. I've wondered whether, if there's any doubt at all about the outcome of the referendum, whether it would actually be, whether Britain, the rest of the UK, would want to leave the weapons in Scotland. Supposing we had an overwhelming condition, just before the referendum, there's overwhelming feeling that the Scots are going to vote yes. At that point, is Westminster actually going to risk having their nuclear weapons in our country, so that when you wake up on Friday morning and Scotland's independent, they've got their nuclear weapons are in someone else's country? So I think the NATO thing might actually come up before that. NATO themselves might need to sort out what they're going to do with the Scots if the Scots if the Scots vote yes and against are in a position to throw out Trident.
I'd imagine there's already been some kind of contingency plans already made, because although they've stated in public, we're not making contingency plans because we don't think there'll be a yes vote, I think probably somewhere they are making contingency plans.
Well, you'd like to think so, just because you'd like to think there's a bit of advanced planning going on.
Exactly.
The Scottish Affairs Committee reported a couple of weeks ago that more contingency plans should be made than are being currently made, and that it would take 20 years to relocate Trident, so something ought to be planned in advance. And various mad suggestions have come out. For example, there's been suggestions that we have a little enclave of England with the two sites of Faslane and Coalport. That's going to be really awkward, because you might have to cross the border twice to get to Helensburgh and go to the supermarket. That's been one of the suggestions. There's also discussions, and maybe I could put it as stronger, fears that there might be some sort of dirty deal made where Scotland is offered money to keep Trident. And that's another reason why we've got to keep this in the public eye and keep the discussions as open as possible, because Scots need to know that this might be a possibility so that they can voice their feelings about it, which we would like to think that we would rather get rid of Trident than be offered, well, I don't know, it might be vast amounts of money, but even then, what price the moral high ground, and what price your safety and the safety of the rest of the world?
The offer to pay for it, I've heard mentioned before. Mm-hmm. But you've said in the polls already that most of the public's already against it, so
yes.
It should be something kept in the public eye. Just to come back to one little thing you said, because you said one guy's saying that it'll take 20 years to move Trident out of Scotland, but in other places I've seen 3 months it could be done. That's an enormous discrepancy in the different estimates. I just wonder, you'll have more information about this, so where do you think it would be? 20 years or 3 months, or neither one there? If everything was done in good faith, how long should it take?
If the 20 years is for setting up a new base somewhere else, and building a new base is going to, I don't even know where they would build it. A solution would have to be found. There's, at the moment, one of the harbours down south, I'm sorry, I forget which one, is being dredged, and that parliamentary questions will be asked in the near future about whether the dredging has anything to do with putting Trident submarines somewhere else. Although a Freedom of Information request that was recently put in, very recently, last week, said that the place hadn't been assessed for nuclear safety, which suggests that it's nothing to do with nuclear submarines. It's probably something to do with cruise liners for people's holidays. But there's no site where the submarines could actually safely be put at the moment. So 20 years is actually, if it's to go somewhere and be used, 20 years is a reasonable estimate. If it's to be taken apart and never be seen again, 2 years is a reasonable estimate.
So 2 years. So 3 months is possibly optimistic. 20 years is...
So within 3 months, it would be unusable and we would be well on the road to being... We would be nuclear free. We would be standing up and saying, we used to be a nuclear state and we're not anymore, and the rest of you can do this too. We'd be leading the whole world.
Which I think would be fantastic. Will we leave it there?
That's lovely, thank you.
All right, thanks very much, Veronika.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Michael.
Hello, thanks for listening again. I hope you enjoyed that. Certainly lots of interesting stuff in there. If you've any ideas for guests you'd like us to have on the podcast, please drop us a line and let us know. We'll do our best to try and get them. If you know Irvin Welsh, tell him we need him. Just to say that the For All That podcast will be back on Sunday as usual, and there'll be another Scottish Independence podcast next week. I say it every week, but thanks again for all the tweets and the support that you give us. If you could leave us a wee review on iTunes, that's always something that helps. As always, the guest chooses a tune, and Veronika chose Freedom Come All Ye, which is a song by Hamish Henderson, but this particular version is by Kev Thompson. And yeah, thanks again. Speak to you next time.
Los glöd hills gatti orbe Vattars menar when through the glade lands of the world today. It's a thought that would guard our mountains and the roads that gang us fresh and gay. Take the road and seek other loneliness with our help boys this morning day. They bear the bonny garlands, march to war when the braggarts closely crawl. Northern winds fray at Eden Garden, but the ships sail into the broomy lawn. Broken families and land we've had, will cast Scotland the brave in Birmingham. Black and white, in and other myriad, mark the vile barracks with the maesters dead. Say, come on, at him with freedom, never knew what the hoodies croak for doom. And you're in all the pens o' Adam, will find breed, barley, and painted room. and